When is
Yeah.
this hatred going to end? It's spread like such wildfire, I think, throughout our country right now. They think when they do these things that, it's going to scare us, it's going to make us back down. It has the opposite effect, my friend. It is the fuel that keeps pushing us forward.
Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Crossroads, conversations where faith and culture intersect and where we begin to meet some fascinating people who are really striving to make a difference in our world. I'm glad you're tuning in. And if you're new to us, take a moment, hit the subscribe button, get involved in the conversation. We're living in an incredible moment, ladies and gentlemen, in history. There is so much noise out there in the I don't even know what you call it, the social media world. I mean, I feel like we're in the battle of the algorithms, and there is fear and there is intensity and there is attack. And here in America, it feels to me, at least in my lifetime, I do not recall a time that we have been more divided as a nation. And of course, we all know the famous saying, united we stand, divided we fall. The scripture says, a house divided against itself cannot stand. A house divided against itself cannot stand. And so I believe that people of goodwill, people who, like my dear friend Mark Gerson, says, live from the principled center. The principled center. We've got to do the hard work of engaging in meaningful conversation with those who are different from us, those who are from different backgrounds. We've got to admit that we might not agree on everything, but we have to find the common ground that we do agree on to avoid being polarized and pulled into extremes, again, by these algorithms and the forces behind the algorithms. Amazingly, a lot of you really understood this several weeks ago when we got involved with what was happening in Nashville, Tennessee. Unbelievable. Nashville, Tennessee, the buckle of the Bible Belt, a well-known hotel chain, all of a sudden arbitrarily cancels a contract of a law-abiding, upstanding, mainstream American group, Tennessee group of Americans who were just gathering to have a peaceful conference to bring education about Israel. And this hotel bowed to pressure from terrorist sympathizers. Again, we're dealing with fear, and canceled the contract of this group. And we got loud and you got loud. And amazingly, that all ended well. And the conference tripled in size, moved to a larger venue, and the hotel apologized for their horrific lack of judgment and common sense in that time. But a friend of mine was there, and I decided then my friend needed to be your friend. And so I'm so excited about my friendship with Bryan Leib. Bryan is an amazing guy. He is not a Christian. He is Jewish. He's a leader in the Jewish community. He's a businessman. He is a communications expert. He's involved in all kinds of projects, not only across America, but most importantly, right where he lives in Southwest Florida. He's deeply invested in his community in Southwest Florida. He's deeply committed to the region that he is a part of. And I said, Bryan, you know what? I know that our Eagles Wings folks would love to hear your story and hear your perspective on what's happening. So welcome to the Crossroads, my friend, Bryan Leib. Bryan, are you there?
I'm here, Bishop. Thank you so much for having me, for the kind introduction, and for everything that you and your organization do to fight for the future of America. It's good to have friends like you, Bishop.
Well, Bryan, I feel the same about you. We've interacted in a variety of contexts over the past couple of years. Recently we were in Washington, D.C. There was a gathering of significant leaders from the Jewish and Christian world. We live in these interesting times that we might not have met one another in a different time, right? But this crisis that we're in our nation is causing people just of common sense, just common sense American values, like treat one another with respect, like, stand up for your greatest ally in the Middle East, Israel, stand against anti-Semitism. These are just core basic principles. And yet today, these things are, um, seeming to be called into question. So, Bryan, let's talk about you for a moment. Your background is communications, public relations. That's your background. You're Jewish. You're a proud American. Tell us a little bit about your journey, and then how over the past, whatever it is, 2-3 years, you all of a sudden said, "Hey, I've got to not only have a profession, but I also have to have a vocation. I also have to kind of like reach out beyond my profession and get involved in issues that are really confronting America today." So just talk about that journey.
Well, it's been quite the journey. But before I do that, Bishop, let me just comment that I think you're right. If anti-Semitism wasn't where it is right now, if October 7th had not have happened, perhaps you and I wouldn't be having this conversation right now.
Yeah.
But something that I've seen throughout my entire life is that in dark times, you really do see who your true friends are. And you also, there's a lot of light that comes out of the darkness. And I think that's something, especially in the Jewish faith, that we very much believe in, and that we need to bring as much light, into the world as we possibly can. And, unfortunately right now, there is an enormous amount of darkness in America and Europe and Israel and all throughout the world. We've got to be together as Jews and as Christians, as Americans, fighting back against the world's oldest hatred and bigotry, which is anti-Semitism. So, a little bit about me. I'm a 38-year-old guy. I was born and raised in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I now live in Southwest Florida for the last 2.5 years now. It feels like an eternity. But it's been a beautiful, beautiful time down here. And I moved to Florida because at the time, I was actually in DC at the time, and they were starting to do the vaccine mandates and all these different things. And I said, this is no way to live. I can't live like this. And I had friends in Florida that were just loving life. And I said, well, it's about time that I go live somewhere where, my personal freedoms, my personal liberties were protected. And that's why I ultimately decided to come down here to Florida. And it's been, I think, Bishop, probably the best personal and professional decision that I've made in my life and in my career. Things have really just taken off. And, I've worn a lot of hats throughout my life and throughout my career. But I think that one hat that's really been a common denominator, even since I was a teenager, is just being in service to others and being involved in the community and doing what I can to help. And that's something that was instilled in me by my mom's parents, my grandparents, and just to have that love of community, have that love of faith, and to do anything you can to help someone. That's really been a guiding light for me throughout my life and throughout my career. And, now here we are where I'm, running a very successful PR and communications firm, where our clients have received millions of impressions on national and international TV and radio and podcasts. And our clients have their op-eds published in every single major publication you could possibly think of. And it's been a lot of fun, And along the way have worn some other hats too. And you mentioned us being in DC together, serving on the National Task Force to combat and monitor anti-Semitism.
Right.
So it's I wear a lot of hats, but I think the biggest hat that I wear is just always trying to be in service and be a proud American. And listen, we see what's happening in our country right now, whether it's, the attack on our children, the attack on Judeo-Christian values, the attack on our way of life. And listen, if Americans see what's happening and they're not, I hate to put fear into people, but if you're not afraid of the direction that our country is going in right now, then I don't know what to tell you. And that really was kind of the impetus for me also jumping into a race for Congress down here, where I'm now
Wow.
a Republican candidate for Congress in Florida's 25th congressional district. And again, it all goes back to just being in service. And, I want to go to DC. I want to be a change agent. I want to be a disruptor. I don't want to be a career politician, Bishop. I don't want to be there for 10, 20, 30, 40 years. I want to go in there, leave my mark, try and push us in a different direction, which, by the way, our founding fathers, they didn't envision career politicians. Our founding fathers envisioned citizen legislators that would go represent their people, make their mark, and then come back to their community and back into their career. So anyways, I know it's a mouthful, but there's a lot going on and a lot to be very grateful and very excited for. And it's really, the time is now. The time is now more than ever before to get off the sidelines. And I implore your audience. I mean, there's so many different ways that people can get involved and help, and just do your part. Do your little part, and we're all together. Hopefully, thank God, gonna take our country back and make the world a better place.
Wow. Well, I do agree with you 100% that this is this moment where, even as it's getting really, really dark, I think of a scripture from, I believe it's Isaiah. It says, "Arise and shine, for your light has come." And then it says, darkness is going to come over the earth. Great darkness will come over the people, but the light of God will rise on you. And it's this kind of mystical picture that as the darkness is getting darker, the light is shining brighter. And, we've got to be people of hope, right? Like we think of Israel's national anthem, Hatikva. We have to be a people who consistently live in hope, live in gratitude, even while we realize that hope requires work. Our hope cannot just be a blind emotion. Our hope has to have legs. It has to have feet. It has to have arms. We've got to do something about our hope in order to be a part of that solution. And, we were talking offline, we're seeing things in America right now that are just unbelievable. I live here in Western New York. We had an experience here a week or two ago. There is a local nonprofit arts school, and they give free art classes to children in the community. I think it's children like, 4 to 14 or something like that. They give free art classes, and they get public funding. I believe they get public funding from the New York Council on the Arts and from other philanthropic foundations, etc. And they sent a letter to the local Jewish day school and said, sorry, your kids are not welcome here because we're not going to welcome any group that is supporting genocide. Now, these are 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old kids. They're American citizens. You have absolutely no idea what those kids' parents' view is on what's happening in Israel, Palestine. You've got no clue what those parents believe. And even what the parents believe, these are children. And simply because they're Jewish, I mean, it is rank anti-Semitism. It's horrific. It's scary. And thank God there was an uproar, and there was just an absolute outcry. And within about 24 to 48 hours, they issued a retraction. They apologized. And I believe that the person who sent the email was actually fired. That's my understanding. But here's the thing, Bryan. If that email was sent in the first place, if that statement was made in the first place, you can do all the apologizing you want, you can do all the retracting you want, but it tells you about the mindset of what is going on out there in the public. And I know you've recently seen some of this in Southwest Florida. You've seen some acts of anti-Semitism right out there. Talk a little bit about, at the local level, what we're seeing in a rise of anti-Semitism. And if history teaches us anything, it teaches us that what starts with the Jews doesn't end with the Jews. So talk about that.
Yeah, no, listen, that's exactly correct. And I think the one thing that we've all seen at a local and a national level, and also throughout the world as well, post October 7th, is that the masks have just come off. You
Right.
know, and we've seen, in the streets of every big city in America, on the quads of college campuses, the vitriol and the hatred, that everyone would always say, well, it's directed at the state of Israel, and then it's not directed at Jews. Well, I think we're all finally seeing the reality and the truth, and that, when you create movements like the BDS movement that only targets the world's only Jewish state, when you say that Jews don't have the right to self-determinate in their ancestral and biblical homelands, this is anti-Semitism. This is not just you being critical, someone being critical of Israel. This is them being highly critical and having deep levels of hate for the Jewish people. And it's something that, Bishop, it's, as Jews, we sit around the table, we kibitz, we talk about this, amongst ourselves about, why is this anti-Semitism, Jew hatred still at the level that it's at right now? And honestly, we can never put a finger on it. It doesn't make any sense,
Right.
other than we just go back to, well, it's the world's oldest hatred, and we've been seeing it for a long time. But I mean, just here in South Florida, which outside of New York, is the second largest demographic of Jews in the United States of America. A kosher pizzeria and bagel store just yesterday was violently defaced with graffiti, Free Palestine, Intifada. It's just, I mean, when's it going to end? When is this hatred going to end? And it's whether it's in Buffalo, it's in Miami, it's all over. It's all over, and it's just it's spread like such wildfire, I think, throughout our country right now. And as upset as let me say this, as upset as we as Jews are when we see this, I've got to tell you though, it brings us as Jews, it brings us closer together. As Jews and Christians, it brings us closer together. It is, they think when they do these things that, it's going to scare us. It's going to make us back down. It has the opposite effect, my friends.
Absolutely.
I mean, it is the fuel that keeps pushing us forward. And I put out a post on all the social media platforms just so when I saw it, saying exactly this, that, we are not going to back down. We are not afraid. We are not going to be quiet, and we're going to keep pushing forward and doing everything that we've been doing. So, it's going to continue to happen, though, Bishop. Unfortunately, we are in a place in our country right now where we have a lot of people that have this deep hatred for the state of Israel, deep hatred for the Jewish people. And I would also say a deep hatred for the United States of America and the Judeo-Christian values in which our country was founded upon. These are the people that you see in the streets burning the American flag. These are not Christians in the streets. These are not Jews in the streets. We know who they are. It's pretty clear to see.
Yeah. Well, it's amazing. And I'm so blessed to see that you have made this courageous decision to not stay on the sidelines. In Christian history, there's a famous man named Dietrich Bonhoeffer who lived in Germany during Hitler's rise to power. And Bonhoeffer saw the danger approaching, and he really actively tried to rally the German church to oppose and to take a principled stance against Hitler's rise to power. But too many churches said, well, we don't want to get political. We need to stay neutral. We can't get involved in politics. But there's a point at which there's a line that is crossed where this is no longer a political issue. This is a human issue. This is transcendent core values. We've got great friends on both sides of the aisle. We've got great Republican friends, great Democratic friends. What we're talking about is an extreme left wokeism that is not rational, that is not seeking any kind of coexistence or path forward or common good. They're talking about the redefinition of what America is, the redefinition of the classical understanding of Judeo-Christian values that gave rise to the greatest democratic republic in the history of the world.
Amen.
And it makes me think of this Bible verse, Bryan, that says, do not remove the ancient boundary marks, right? Like scripture over and over again says, don't move the ancient boundary. If you start shifting with the foundational principles upon which society rests, I'm telling you what, you're moving into peril. And Nazi Germany demonstrated that. The fall of the Roman Empire demonstrated that. We can look throughout history. When you begin dealing with these underpinnings, it moves core things. So let me ask you a question. You're running for Congress, you're serving on all of these task forces, you're involved in all of these issues. And obviously anti-Semitism is core to your message, but you're not only singly concerned about anti-Semitism. There are 3 or 4 or 5 core values that drive you, that you want to bring into every conversation that you're a part of. Talk to us about what are those 3, 4, 5 core values that help shape your worldview that you want to see brought to the places that you serve.
Yeah, of course. I mean, obviously, as a Jew, anti-Semitism is certainly in the forefront because we're living and breathing it every single day in ways that we never could have possibly imagined in 2024. But this is the lay of the land, and we're going to deal with the cards that we're dealt right now. But when you look at issues that are important to me, I've always been someone that really believes in putting us, the American people, and our interests at the forefront. I think America First is not this like boogeyman type slogan that people want to make it out to be. I mean, we can be America First, and we can still stand with our allies. America First doesn't mean America alone. It means, though, that we do need to take care of our own people first. The fact that we have thousands of veterans that are committing suicide every year, still to this day, and have been for the last 25 years. That should shake every American to our core, that we have that happening, and there really has not been any significant reduction in that number in decades. So when I look at things that are important to me, I want to live in a country that takes care of our veterans that have risked everything to protect our freedoms. I want to live in a country where businesses can start, they can flourish, and they're not burdened by regulations at a federal level, a state level, really free enterprise and being able to create their own destiny. And of course, listen, we have to be a country of law and order, of rules and consequences, actions and consequences. And also we have to have a border. Bishop, we have to have a border. The fact that we just have millions of people that have been coming into this country, albeit I'm sure a good percentage of them, want to be here for the right reasons. I get that. But we should be doing things to maybe reform our immigration system, reform the VA, instead of just kicking the can down the road over and over again. So, I mean, those are some issues that are very important to me: protecting small businesses, supporting our veterans, funding, not defunding our law enforcement and our first responders, and just really putting the needs of the American people first. And one more thing, as it relates to running for Congress, as a young guy myself, I don't want to be a career politician. I very much believe in term limits. I think there should be term limits for every single political office at a national, state, county, local level. And we should have term limits, because if we're being honest with ourselves, for a guy to break in or a gal to break into Congress, it's not easy. I mean, it takes a lot of money. It takes a lot of resources. And the system is created to keep incumbents in office and to keep people like me that want to get in there and be a disruptor and keep us out. I really would love to see term limits in Congress, in the House, and in the Senate. I mean, we have term limits for president, we have term limits for everything else, but for some reason we don't have it there. So those are some of the issues that are really important to me in terms of, in this run for Congress, but also just like what guides my life in terms of what we're doing. And I think we all can agree that what we see happening in this country in a lot of ways, Bishop, is just, it's troubling. The fact that, parents would go to a school board meeting to protest that their 6-year-old kids are being shown, videos of gay men having sex, or books of gay men having sex, and a parent goes to the school board to protest and speak out against that, only to be labeled by our federal government as a domestic terrorist. I mean, what is happening in this country right now? So there's a lot of things that are not going in the right direction, but I do think that there's enough people like yourself, a lot of your supporters, me, friends of mine, that really do care about the future of this country. And we are no longer on the sidelines anymore. We are in the fight, and we're doing everything that we can to fight for the future of our country that we love so much.
Well, folks, I hope what you're seeing here is an example and an encouragement to you that none of us, none of us right now can stay on the sidelines. Every single person has some place, you got some sphere of influence. It might not be the level to which Bryan's is. You might not be called to serve on boards or run for Congress, but you have influence. You've got connection to social media. You've got a Facebook account. You've got access to attend your local school board meeting. You've got the phone number of your congressman, the email address of your congressman. They listen to you. Every single person right now has to move from the place of just hoping and just praying to actually putting actions to their hopes and prayers. And Bryan, you're a great example for us of that in all the work that you do. And your work as a businessman, running your PR firm, the various boards you serve on, and the nonprofits, and now you've taken the step to run for Congress. And I'm just always glad when my friends get to meet my other friends. So thank you for the time you've spent with us today. How do people connect with you? They want to reach out to you in your business place and your nonprofits, your Congress work. How do they get involved and find you?
Well, my business website is henrypr.com. My website for Congress is Bryan with a Y, for Broward.com, not the number 4, but for FOR Broward.com. And of course, you can just put my name in social media anywhere, and I'm sure it'll come up somewhere. But Bishop, thank you very much for having me here today. Thank you for the kind words, and it's an honor to be able to tell my story a little bit to your audience. And when I think about why I do what I do, throughout my whole life, for me, it all comes back to my grandparents, my mom's parents. They were your typical over-involved Jewish grandparents, in the best way possible. They were a second set of parents for me, and a lot, if not all, of my values, my beliefs, my work ethic, everything really does come from my grandparents.
Beautiful.
And it's I don't know. I look at what I'm doing as, sure, I think I have a big platform and I'm doing a lot of good things, but at the end of the day, I just kind of view myself as just another guy like yourself, another American who loves this country, and really just wants to do everything that we can to leave a better place for the next generation. And, something in the Jewish faith, we talk about Lador Vador, generation to generation. And, I'm still a young guy, but I've always been focused about who's behind me and what's coming next. And I think we all have to be like that. And like you said, you don't have to run for Congress to make a difference. There's things that you can do in your everyday life, to help make a difference with your neighbor, or your local small business, or your church. So there's a lot of things you can do. So Bishop, thank you. It's an honor to be here with you. Thank you to all of your everyone in your audience. And then just final thought is as anti-Semitism really is at these historic levels. You mentioned you've never seen it this bad in your lifetime. I've never seen it this bad in my lifetime. I've got to tell you, the Jewish people are deeply, deeply thankful and grateful to our Christian brothers and sisters for everything that you do to support us, to fight with us here on the ground here in America, for everything you do to support the people and land of Israel. It is it's very heartwarming to know that we have friends, because unfortunately we also don't have a lot of friends, and we all see that right now. But thank you to you and for everything you do. It's an honor. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Bryan. And yeah, you have friends, but not only are we friends, I remind our Christian brothers and sisters, your fight is our fight. I mean, this is really, even though anti-Semitism is the first thing that manifests, it ends up as an attack on the entire Judeo-Christian worldview. It ends up an attack on our nation, on our religious freedoms. And so it's really, yes, we are your friends, but beyond that, this affects all of us. And Christians are increasingly understanding that. Folks, thank you for dropping by today. Check out Bryan Leib. He's a fantastic American, a fantastic human being. You need to get to know him, especially if you're down there in that Southwest Florida area. Look in on all the things that he's doing in his business and his nonprofit work, his run for Congress. He's a fantastic, fantastic friend and a great person for you to know. And everybody, make sure you do this. Keep working and praying for the peace of Jerusalem. Bryan, thank you so much.
Thank you. God bless America.
God bless everybody. Shalom.